All right. And this is the intro. I'm gonna switch over. Hey everybody, welcome to the All In. Oh my gosh, let's redo that. That was
All in
terrible.
podcast.
Ha ha ha! I love that podcast.
Bro.
I'm gonna start again because I'll cut that out. That's all right. Ha ha. I've been, that's all I listened to on the plane was that.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to the BSIT podcast here today. We got Brooks down here below. We have Ben over here, and we got our fun guest Renee Salinas. He's worked in the gosh man, I've worked with it. We worked where did we meet over at? Was it Perot?
Perot.
Yeah, over at Perot.
Perot about 15 years ago.
Yeah, Perot 15 years ago, and then now you're working over healthcare tech, right?
Yeah.
So we got some fun healthcare tech stuff that we'll probably end up talking about and whatnot. Any exciting news on that end?
Yeah. So the lab space, right?
Yeah.
Right now we're in the infectious disease for humans, and we're trying to get into the food safety
Ooh.
and also
Okay.
pets.
Okay.
So you know how much money people spend on their pets
I've seen Instagram, sir.
for
I mean,
healthcare?
how much
Oh,
money I've spent on my pets and how much my girlfriend spends on the hunting dogs. So yeah, there's an enormous amount of money in that.
I
Just
mean,
the
like
$35 in the kennel.
our first
Or
dog
the
was a kennel dog, and it got parvo, and I think we spent like 3,500 on it, and I was like sitting there, I'm like, I mean, the dog survived. It was great. It just, man, that was $3,500 just for the parvo treatment, plasma treatment.
point in
How much
case.
did you have to spend on destroying the land? Because once parvo's in the ground, it's there for like 50 years. You have to dig the ground up or destroy it.
So what's fun is we got them from the shelter with parvo, and we let them know, and they said, okay, thanks. We're not going to do anything, but thanks.
I guarantee they euthanized whatever was left and they destroyed the land. You have to. It's a state
Wow.
regulation.
Well,
It's not an optional thing.
I
You
won't
have
I
to
won't
do it.
say which shelter it was, but it was one that we know of, essentially down south. Kind of near, I don't want to even say near the highway, but it was over there. I think it was one of those situations like not much we can do.
Yeah, once it's there, it's kind of there. But if you're a breeder or a reseller or any kind of like if you're
This was a shelter that we picked him up from. Like we were trying to
if
be
it's state run though, they still have to follow the rules, and the rules are
interesting.
you have to euthanize the animal.
Man, that was so long ago. That was like 15 years ago or something like that. Wow, that's just crazy. In any case, yeah. So yeah, pets are expensive, man. So that's
Yeah. So
interesting.
that's the reason why we're trying to get into that market,
Yeah,
right? Plenty of money to be made.
yeah.
So
Oh
yeah,
God, yeah.
those are some of the things we're getting into, and then from the tech side of it, just having a we're creating a pizza tracker just like Domino's does.
Oh yeah.
Whenever you know, once you've ordered, then it's in the oven, then it's out for delivery, and then it's at your door.
I
We're
mean,
doing
I
the same
mean,
thing for specimens, right?
I mean, from an anxiety point of view of where my lab results, that must be great to not have to answer those questions. Go to your portal. Go look at your portal.
That's right.
It's in the oven.
That's
They
right.
just added cheese to it. Yeah, a guy named Tony is processing the centrifuge.
It's,
I mean,
it's a
honestly,
section
that kind
here.
of thing doesn't really exist that much outside of really, really enclosed lab environments. Not on the consumer level.
So is this for
Depending on how it's
consumer?
tracked, it'd be decent for
Is this
some of that third
consumer
party
side, or
labs.
would this be like just internal to like labs?
It's going to be both consumer, the patient, and the provider. So the
Okay.
provider can go to their portal and see where's my patient's sample, um, and the same for the consumer, the patient as well. Speaking of the pizza tracker, I think Domino's is um, they're actually creating a patent for that pizza tracker technology.
How can I mean, I guess you can create a patent on that for that
They're
specific
selling,
one,
yeah, and
but
they're trying. I guess they're trying to sell it to other industries to use the same way.
I mean, let
They're
me think
also
about
probably
it.
trying to sue everyone else that wrote one based on their method.
I mean, I'm sitting there thinking, who else has a pizza tracker?
They all do.
Little Caesars really
Pizza,
doesn't.
but Little Caesars doesn't do delivery.
Oh, okay.
What's the value
No, no,
in?
oh no, they technically do delivery now. They just do
Yeah,
it
but it's
through.
up to the franchise location to
Yeah.
private hire, and they third party that
God,
stuff
I
out.
haven't actually ordered pizza in forever. Holy jeez. Like we just go pick it up
If you think
because
about
they're
it, any
cheap.
delivery service,
Yeah.
any delivery service, you think of DoorDash, Uber Eats,
Can
um,
you imagine if
you
they
know,
win that lawsuit? Uber's like, no, 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 no. We have the patent on tracking where you are on the map.
Well,
mhm.
they
Nice.
license Uber Eats and DoorDash both license that tech from a third party GPS provider
Yeah.
for that kind of tracking. So for them in particular, they're safe because they're not part of the food production; they're just a delivery mechanism.
Yeah.
Right.
But if on the food production side, I don't really know of anyone that actually has a patent on that process. That would be pretty interesting.
Yeah. I
My,
mean,
my
I just
my mom needs a lot of lab work done all the time. She's always having to go out and get that stuff done, probably 3 or 4 times a week. And having a lab result tracker would actually be something she would subscribe to. Like
yeah.
for people that
Hmm.
are in like the medical industrial complex as a whole, there's just this huge like lack of information, and having access to that would be a lot of peace of mind, but also patients become their largest advocate, especially these days because insurance companies don't even listen to doctors orders anymore for fulfillment of most stuff, and so they become their biggest advocate, and having information up to date allows them to be a more proactive advocate. It's be pretty interesting to see where this goes.
No, I'm interested. I mean, that seems super interesting. So, all right.
Yep. So that's what we're working on, man. That's what we're working on.
In any case, oh well, good. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast here today and talking about stuff. I kind of want to jump right into it. All right, this is more of an article for me because I'm super nerdy. The pulsars and gravitational waves being able to be seen, right? So if you follow Hank Green on TikTok or anything else, we there's these huge arms essentially that we have on Earth, and they're kind of like micro gravitational wave, like for very high frequency detectors. Essentially, it's like a 3 mile an hour arm basically, and when each one of them moves, it kind of detects it. But that's for very very small frequencies. So essentially, what the scientific community has been doing, which is really cool, is they've been studying globally in conjunction with each other these pulsars, right? And these pulsars, what they're able to do is they're able to go and essentially detect it across the Milky Way galaxy and essentially see the differences in the pulsar and the lights coming off of them, see if there's any micro changes in between them. And essentially, they're able to discover they're able to turn basically the entire Milky Way galaxy into a satellite dish, so to speak, or into a detector to be able to tell and see actual gravitational waves that happen from like other planets and basically like from the Big Bang and other stuff like that. And I just thought that was really, really cool to be able to do that and to see that. And essentially, they're kind of changing the way of essentially how physics is done. It's the same idea with like the James Webb Telescope talking about like gravitational pull and other stuff like that, with being able to see the lights travel around like black holes and other stuff, and being able to see the ellipses coming around it, kind of showing light does bend around gravitational essentially masses and other things like that. I just thought it was cool. I don't know, kind of
I
nerdy
mean, they
stuff.
can
Very
use it to
interesting.
tell when large celestial bodies are moving in the directions they're moving by backtracking where the ripples are.
Yeah.
It's a pretty neat thing,
Yeah.
honestly, to be able to use those chirps as kind of like planetary echolocation.
Yeah. Oh,
Pretty cool.
I love it to death. I mean, it's a little bit out there, but it's a big step for the scientific community, for the astrological community. I mean, it's really fun. Like if there was an episode, if there were still episodes of Big Bang Theory, I'm sure they would be a part of whole Big Bang Theory. You know, with the James Webb, with this huge like globe. What's amazing to me is this is a globe wide event where every scientist across the world is essentially working together just for this one function in science, which is really cool because you really don't get that a lot. You usually have a lot of competing and fighting ideas, but it's interesting that a concept that somebody or a concept or an idea can be studied in conjunction together globally without everyone arguing essentially with each other. Not that there's not arguing, but it's a really neat idea that shows that there can be some unification across the board.
I saw that some people were going to try and use this to date stamp like planetary events and stuff like that, and use it to predict time. Because by the time we see some of these, depending on how far away they are, and we
Yeah.
can observe them, they could be 100 years in the past. So they're trying to use some of these to date stamp certain large events that
Yeah.
we because right now we don't really know how long it takes for everything to get here.
Yeah.
So like, it could be decades, it could be months, it could be days, it could be, centuries. So trying to take observable events that we had on like telescopes and stuff like that and long range imaging and events that we did and tie that into some of the gravitational waves and ripples in our able to see to give us a sense of the concept of another mechanism for time. Right now we use roughly anyway light speed for a lot of things with the atomic clock. With nuclear decay, it would be cool to see yet a third way to get even more precise measurements for time and for predictive models and stuff.
Oh, that's interesting, Renee. I know that's not really up your field. What you got? Any cool thoughts about that?
I just wonder what it sounds like, right? I mean, just being able to listen to the sound waves out
Well,
there.
oh, so they're
Essentially what it
so
is.
large. I mean, it's you'd have to be like a celestial body to even hear it because those waves span galaxies, literally. So,
Right.
so what it's doing is it's kind of this is layman terms. Don't get mad at me, everybody. I'm dumbing it really, really down here,
I need
but
that, by the way.
but essentially the waves span like the entire galaxy, and it's basically just like this. You're not going to see much of it, so
Yeah.
maybe from a point of view from a sound, if you were to like take it, shrink it down, and that's essentially the sound that you may get from it, by the way, which that's a lot of like extraterrestrial sounds that you hear or you see like on like whenever you see something on the news report. Oh, this is the sound a star makes, or this is whatever it makes. They take all of those waves and essentially compress it down to kind of being more into a format that we can hear it in. So
Right.
it is what it sounds like if we were a massive celestial body in the Marvel universe, and we were one of
I
those
always
huge
imagine it
beings.
sounds like whale songs, just
Yeah,
because
Yeah.
the
like
Star
Dor-
that Star Trek movie back in the day. Well, no, like back in the day, Star Trek movie, they used
Oh my
whale
gosh, yeah.
songs for everything. So ever since then, I've been like, yeah, I bet it sounds like whale song. Because I was a stupid kid, and I'm still a relatively stupid adult when it comes to astrophysics.
Oh man, I don't know. That's so. If I wasn't gonna go into tech, I even have it. I'm laughing. So I'm a part of like my reunion committee for my high school, right? And I'm
Yeah.
laughing, and I was looking at the yearbook, kind of going through people, figuring out who we need to contact, and they did a little segment on me. Essentially, I wanted to be a computer programmer, or I wanted to study astrophysics. So
That's
I
a
mean,
pretty big shift in how your brain has to work. They're both engineering fields, but
oh,
they're
they are.
drastically
I mean,
different.
my brain I still think is better on that scale. And I love the math and everything else. I just didn't take it seriously enough back then to do that, and I ended up going obviously into computers and stuff like that. Kind of crazy. So, in any case, I got some hot news here that we can talk about. It's going to be a little bit hotly debated, but um, gosh, maybe about 20 minutes ago or about 20, 30 minutes ago, it shows that the Supreme Court rejects affirmative action ending use of race as factor in college admissions. So, kind of the article says, and this is from CBS News if anyone's interested. The Supreme Court on Thursday ruled that race caucus admission policies of Harvard College and the University of North Carolina violate the Constitution, bringing an end to affirmative action in higher education and decision that will reverberate across campuses nationwide. The ruling was 6-3 along identical lines of the University of North Carolina case 6-2 Harvard dispute. Essentially, they're saying that yeah, you can't basically use race as a factor for admissions. On one side, it looks obviously as a bad idea for dropping affirmative action, saying, "Hey, no, we need to get these people in that don't have a chance." But also on the other side, you're looking at the case that actually was brought up to it, where it was an Asian American essentially got rejected after scoring almost a near perfect on his SAT scores, having like basically having top scores on everything, and essentially got rejected of all of those factors and criterias. And when they did a deep dive into it and the requirement with everything else, they ended up finding out in the lawsuit that a lot of the communications internally and everything else is saying, oh, we essentially need to give a chance to all of the people. Like they were looking at admitting someone with SAT scores with an 810 instead of him, which is I'm like, oh
Wait,
man, that's
810 total or 810 on like
810
one
total.
Jesus.
810 total. So that's what they were looking at admitting, because they're like, oh, we need to get these babies in instead of these other people, because like one of them was like the Asians had their chances with everything. We need to get these other people in here, which obviously the huge debate is, we have people of minorities from different backgrounds fighting to get in essentially. And I mean, the argument is, well, these people have been underprivileged and they haven't had the chance, so therefore they are going to have lower test scores and we need to give them the chance to get in. Versus, a lot of the Asian community is essentially yelling, saying, listen, we've had those same struggles too. We've been in our internment camps, or whatever the case is, but we still basically pushed our kids to do well and work hard and those other things essentially, whether it's a culture debate or not. And I'm going to kind of leave it open there, and those are the two sides of it, so everyone don't kill me. I'm just explaining both sides. I mean, what's
I
your
actually
guys'
saw that
thoughts?
debate.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I saw that debate I can't remember what platform, but it was during a Harvard classroom setting,
Oh yeah.
right? And so the Harvard professor asked the question about the specific topic and allowed the students to debate each other's point of views on it. And I think the bottom line is that there's I wouldn't say privilege. Well, it is probably some level of privileged kids who have more resources because of their parents, the connections that allow them more opportunities to get into Harvard, schools like Harvard, right?
Yeah.
Rather than someone else who does have a high SAT score, but doesn't have the same connections, right? So that's where I think the amount of resources and the type of resources that different families have will give one more opportunity than over the other.
I just
So
wish that
that's
everything went
where
back to being merit based again. Like it should be, if you're good enough to get in, you can get in. Same thing with hiring. The right person for the job should be the person for the job. Quotas do nothing but lower the
yeah.
overall quality of applicants that get accepted on all sides of the spectrum. It doesn't matter if it's men versus women or ethnic races. One of the things that schools have been doing is lowering academic standards depending on your race. I mean, this is like California's been doing it quite a bit. Washington State does it. New York does it, and several states do it, where they lower the academic requirements for even graduation, even like something as simple as a reading level, depending on your proclaimed race. And colleges have been doing the same thing for a while as well. They lower the academic standards for grading and passing, depending on the race and depending on how you came into the school. And that's ridiculous, because all that ultimately happens is you end up with a society of people less qualified than they would have been 3 years ago, simply because of their gender or their race. I'm not saying that we should be like stereotyping people out of opportunities because of their race or gender. What I am saying is that if you have the skill, if you have the knowledge, if you have the capability, you should be the one that gets that spot. And it shouldn't
Hmm.
matter. I don't care if you're a Martian with polka dots, as long as your test scores are good and you meet the other selective criteria, you should be getting into the schools and the programs that you want. And if you don't, either the selection criteria needs to be updated or you just don't meet it. Not everyone has to win. There's this insane requirement for everyone to win these days. And it just isn't the case. And I'm not saying this is somewhat like white privilege or whatever. I grew up poor, with like dirt floor poor in Texas. Grew up with nothing. So like I had no privilege going up except for the right to work as a 12-year-old to feed my family, pushing freaking lawnmowers and stuff to feed my family in the middle of nowhere in Texas. So like I'm not speaking of this from anything but a place where I earned where I needed to be in life completely. And it's infuriating that people that just don't have to earn it to get opportunities that they never really deserved in the first place, because they didn't put the work in.
Right.
Again, I didn't go to like fancy schools. I didn't have a bunch of fancy education. None of that stuff is true. I graduated with like 25 people total in my graduating class. I did not go to a big place or a well-funded place, but I went to a place with teachers that were passionate, that were allowed to practice the art of being a teacher. So I learned. I don't understand why we're not giving kids that same value and that same opportunity.
Yeah, one of the things that they're putting in place is similar to workforce or the workplace is this diversity, equality, and inclusion programs or efforts, right? Where they have to have a certain percentage of diverse, both from a gender, a generation, and race perspective, so that way they can look more like a place that's inclusive and and pro diversity, right? So um, programs like that they're putting in place also in schools, right? They want to have to or they have to meet a certain level of diversity scoring, if you will, which you know can help, but then also at the same time there can be some negative effects to that too, right? Because then if you're being more of diverse focus, then you're going to want to bring in somebody that's more of a diverse individual than someone who's probably more qualified,
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking
right?
about equity versus equality then, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, the big talk, I don't know, I would say 10, 20 years ago was about equality, essentially everyone having the same opportunity, which I'm not necessarily against. Everyone having the same opportunity is important because we still have issues with like nepotism and other stuff like that. Which here's my big argument. I know this is going to be a hot take. My big argument about nepotism is it sucks and it's inevitable, and it sucks because there are places where you try to get in where I explicitly have been told, hey, we're not gonna, we really don't know you, you're kind of Asian, we really don't want you here and you're kind. So I've been told that before, right? But also at the same time, I find it inevitable because when we go and hire people, aside from like we put out posts, we look through resumes and other stuff like that, we do our best to find the best candidate. I mean, I want the best candidate as a company owner. You do too, Renee. I'm sure you want that on your team when you're running a PMO organization, right?
Hmm.
But also at the same time, we end up going with people we trust because we don't know who's going to be a part of the team. We don't know if they're going to fit well. We do our best to find somebody, but a lot of people end up bringing in other people because it's a trust game when you hire people at the end of the day to be on your team, because it could ruin your reputation, it could ruin your company or anything else. So on one hand it's inevitable, and on the other hand, yeah, I kind of get it. So like equality wasn't like, I was like, all right, cool, yeah, the forms of it, I don't know about forced equality, but hey, we're going to give everyone the opportunity to apply for this job. Or like even what Google and everyone is, I don't know if you know, Renee, but a lot of huge tech companies are starting to drop requirements for like degrees and stuff like that, because they're just finding out that those degrees kind of mean nothing if you can't code, even though your whole degree is coding, right? But equity is rough. Essentially, basically, it's not just giving everybody the opportunity, but essentially pushing the stack towards somebody, essentially being equitable with everything that we're doing. Everyone's pushing the stack. Like California, was it SB 826 requires any publicly traded company, well, that's primarily held in California, that has a corporate board, to require at least one woman on their board, if your company's headquartered in California, no matter what, if you're a publicly held company.
Hmm.
So obviously I call it the equitable bell curve. Essentially, you have to have this, and this, and this to be on there, no matter what. And dude, and my point of view is, you kind of, at that point, you kind of drain your source pool, essentially, by doing that. Not saying that there aren't great people. Like, look at Elon Musk. A lot of people give him shit over all of his stuff that he does, but head of Twitter, female, head of half of his stuff at Tesla, female. Like, he hires a lot of females to be a lot of the head of stuff, but they were the best in their field at what they did as
Well,
well.
and to be fair, he also has 11 kids by 6 different women.
Shh, we don't talk about his personal life.
I
That's
mean,
terrible.
but as
He's
for by all intents, it's like for all measurable things, he seems to be a pretty decent father in that particular
yeah,
regard. To go back to the equality thing real quick, what we've come to focus on now as a society, because of how the laws seem to be written these days, is equality of outcome, not equality of opportunity. Everyone
yeah,
deserves an opportunity for
yeah,
greatness, but it doesn't mean that everyone is guaranteed it.
yeah,
And what they're trying to do now with the laws is guarantee equality across the board,
yeah.
or guarantee that opportunity will be successful. And think people need to fail to learn. That's
Mm-hmm.
just how our brains work for the most part. You see, you see things that people aren't supposed to do, and you go, "I shouldn't do that because I saw that person get punished." Or you see someone try a method that didn't work in this, even in the scientific community. You see scientists fail over and over and over again, and that is like a true representation of equality of opportunity, right? They all have the opportunity to try something new. They don't guarantee it's going to work. And the way we have stuff structured now is it just guarantees that everyone that tries works. Everyone gets to get in as long as they meet these other factors. They don't necessarily having to put the work in. And we've seen a cascade of the lowering of standards across the board in all sectors of our lives since it started being the focus. The Constitution guarantees you the opportunity and the right to life, liberty, and happiness. But if you want to be free, you have to choose to do certain things, and some of those things involve sacrifice. If you want to be happy, you have to choose to be happy. Otherwise, nothing can make you happy. We just don't put the emphasis back on personal accountability and responsibility anymore. You're responsible for your life alone. You're responsible for building the opportunities that you don't just get handed to you. It's one of the things that's always made America great is anyone can succeed, and they really can. Because they used to be able to if they put the work in. But if you go get a job at McDonald's and you want to stay there for your entire life and you want to live in Los Angeles and you want to have like, the place where average real estate for houses, what, half a million or so dollars for a small house, you're not getting that at 15 or $20 an hour. You're not getting it at $8 an hour. Those jobs are designed to be stepping stones to teach you responsibility to get a real job. Just like sports are designed to teach kids responsibility, teamwork, sacrifice, and effort, and they're just not being presented that way anymore. And we've really seen in the last 20 years how much we've fallen from that. The things that made America really good, America has decided to legislate around, and it's really sad.
Yeah, I love that mentality of you've got a choice to be happy, right? Because we really do. And today's society, there's too many people acting like victims because of whatever had happened to them. Well, they have a choice to let that go, move forward, and improve upon themselves. I mean, this other notion of failure being an opportunity to improve is very important to understand because there's some mentality. There's a lot of individuals who have this mentality that I just want to be secure, safe, and do the same thing. Yet I want all these benefits, all these
Mhm.
extra, things in my life. Well, you're not going to grow being safe. You're not going to grow being comfortable. You've got to get out of your shell, do things new, fail at it, learn it. It's the only way you're going to learn. And then you will have more opportunities to then have more, know more, grow more. So I think that's very important for, um, you know, people of especially the generations growing up today to really understand and grasp and start thinking about, and then holding each other accountable to it, right? So I think that's very important and something that we don't, our schooling system and a lot of parents today just don't teach uh, this generation that's growing up.
They don't teach them about the value of sacrifice
Yeah.
and perseverance and getting comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Hmm.
So I'm a parent and I absolutely make my kid work for everything that she needs to work for because you don't value things you don't earn. It's just a reality. Like so many people just want to be famous as like kids these days. They want to be an influencer. They want to be a YouTuber. They want to be a content creator. They want to be known for whatever garbage they've decided that, TikTok is made famous for the week. And that's kind of stuff isn't sustainable. If
Hmm.
you want to be an influencer, do something of value, contribute and influence in the right way. Otherwise, you're a flash in the pan. There's no monetization. Fast money goes fast. And you see that all the time. Even lottery winners, they have these huge windfalls, and most of them are filing for bankruptcy in 3 years because they didn't earn it. They didn't use their money wisely, and they never grew up and with any kind of financial accountability outside of week to week, paycheck to paycheck. And that really kind of rots your brain a little bit because you stop thinking about the future and always worrying about tomorrow. And while I can recognize that that's an economic thing, I experienced it growing up. Um, it doesn't change the fact that if you want to have long term value in a life that you live, do something valuable with it. I really hope that we're seeing a bit of a rebound for some of this, but I really hope that kids and younger adults at some point realize that life is a cycle and there's bad times, there's good times. But if you want to really enjoy and appreciate the good times, you have to go through the bad ones.
So here's an interesting take on that. So I was just watching a video, and it was at a conference where two people are talking. I don't know where it was at, but it was two Indian fellows. They were talking, and one of them they both owned engineering firms, and one of them goes, it's at a conference, and the guy goes, what he's like, we're having trouble hiring and keeping anyone after a year. We're thinking about making them sign 3-year contracts and everything else. And the other guy immediately goes, no. He goes, that's not going to work. He goes, you can do that all you want. He's like, but you can't tie them down like that. He goes, there are obviously laws in the U.S. and everything else says you can't. You can lock someone in the contract. You may like lose your money for like a bonus or whatever, but you can't stop someone from going to work anywhere else, right? And he goes, the problem is we're in generational shifts, right? And I have a postulate here. One, he said, our grandparents' age with the generational shift was necessity. They worked out of necessity, whether bosses treated them like crap, whether they were abused, whether they were literally physically hit, or anything else. They stayed because they had to survive, right? The next phase, which is kind of more, I would say, like older millennial, Gen Xer type of phase, is the hey, we've built it. We want to build a standard of living. We don't have to do it out of necessity, but we also we're working really hard to maintain and to basically keep that. The next phase, which is essentially the workforce coming in with this generational phase, is it's all about the social revolution essentially. So we had our industrial revolution, we had our tech revolution, which kind of ended, I would say, for those type of people around 2008, essentially getting into more of the social revolution that kind of expounded from there to where people are like, no, 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 I need a place that's like this, and I need to feel good about my job because essentially the previous generations made it so they never even had to think or feel any type of issue, any hurt, anything. Kind of the old adage of, I'm doing this so my kid never has to worry about this or my kid never has to worry about that. Um, so essentially you got that whole postulate of the generation now, essentially, that's never had to kind of work through adversity or traumas, essentially, everyone having their own trauma at the end of the day with these different things, which I think, and my postulate is, I don't know if they can get back to that one without having a war, or two without the economy basically breaking down where no one can afford everything and everyone has to go back into that generational phase of, oh shit, I have to work at 3 different McDonald's to survive.
But the requirement to survive never left. The
Yeah,
only difference between that time and this time is that the
yeah,
government now financially incentivizes people not to work. This was even pre-COVID,
yeah.
this was a thing that was happening. People were being paid enormous amounts of social stipend not to work, not to engage in society, and to be relying on the government because it keeps people, at the end of the day, it keeps people docile, it keeps them dependent. Now you see, since COVID, everyone got really, really comfortable with that, all that extra money the government was doling out. And a lot of people just decided to just nope out of the workforce right now. And it's like, as someone that has to hire, it's incredibly discouraging to know that even if no matter what you were paying, some people simply wouldn't be willing to do the job. And it's not a matter of any of us not being willing to pay an appropriate amount of money for a position. Like in tech especially, all these people have these ridiculously inflated salaries. They come out of college with a basic computer science degree or some basic UI UX certification. They're demanding six-figure salaries with no relevant work experience. It's like you haven't done anything in this industry. You haven't even dipped your toes in. You went to school, you overpaid for your degree, and you think everyone is like paying salaries like you live in San Francisco or Austin. It's just not the case. You don't live there. You want to make that kind of money? Go there. And the response from applicants is, well, they wouldn't hire me. Well, I won't either because you have an absolutely overinflated sense of worth, skill, and ego. I'm happy to give people opportunities. I'm happy to pay you appropriately. I don't know that anyone has ever said that, like, CG's never underpaid anyone. I know that Converge and Blacksmith haven't ever underpaid anyone.
No.
So like no
As
one
a
would be
matter of
like,
fact,
you don't pay well enough. We always both of us overpay over industry like 10 to
yeah.
15% because that's what you should do to retain good talent. So but these kids come out and they're like, no, I'm demanding this. Or they'll come out with, I have a really good idea. I want you to fund it here. I need $1 million to fund my next great idea. And you look at it and there's no feasible business model, but it does bring them a hell of a lot of clout on the back end. Stuff like that is just so bizarre to me as someone who has had to work and earn my way through life every single step of the way. I have a gray beard, but I'm not old. I went gray when I was 18.
Well,
But
I
I
guess
just don't. I don't get it.
well that I guess jumps into the next thing. If you don't mind, we're gonna jump over here. So here's the next thing that I want to kind of go over. Essentially, with that, the last 6 months in tech, unless you're in specialized areas, have been pretty shitty. It's taken kind of a huge dump. I'm not sure. I mean, from the medical side, I don't know if it's different from your side, Renee, but I would say like most tech investments and anything else has been dying out. Essentially, like Silicon Valley right now is saying that basically, if you're a startup in late 2023, unless like you're AI or you're something that is a team of people essentially building something that's tangible and you have active users or anything like that, your funding's kind of dead, essentially. So, or you're finding out teams are a lot smaller. We talked about this a little bit in the past, but I mean, essentially, we're kind of seeing dying out of money right now. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, as far as healthcare is concerned, when it comes to, right? I mean, it's they're using paper still instead of going electronic. So, um, for healthcare, it's we were way behind when it comes to using technology. Um, Now, I think you're right. I think that there's uh, we as just where we're at today with technology, we are behind as well, and it's going to take money to get us to where the R&D needs to happen uh, to implement new things. It's we can build an infrastructure where there's more advanced technology than we have today, but then who can afford it,
Hmm.
right? It's it's like Elon Musk having a bunch of spaceships available to go out to the moon, but nobody can afford to use them. so so what's the purpose? It's just going to be collecting dust. Um, and the same for the technology. You have to have a user base that can afford it in order for it to not just um, exist but evolve, right? So that's so I think you're right on with where we're at with technology today and the inability to really build upon where we're at and have a strong user base to be able to evolve it.
So, are you seeing any effect in your industry from the healthcare industry at all with that?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, I mean, healthcare does not like to spend money on technology if they don't have to. They're using fax machines today, right? They're still on paper. Um, there's not there should be a regulation to go electronic, um, but and that's really where we need to go. Where to be able to push the use of technology, be able to push the evolution of technology, especially in healthcare, because it doesn't exist today, right? They're doing the bare minimum just to meet HIPAA and PHI requirements, right? So yeah, healthcare is going to be probably one of the last places you'll see evolved technology being used on the day-to-day basis. I mean, there's technology out there that can be able to, take cells and and be able to re-engineer those cells to do certain things, right? I mean, shit, my dad had cancer a few years ago, and the only thing that worked to get him into full remission was a CAR T plasma re-engineering technology, which was new. It was cutting edge. It was a clinical trial, right? Taking his red blood cells out, re-engineering it to then focus on the specific cancer that he had and fight that specific illness, right? So there's technology out there
Is
like
that
that
based
at
off
that
of the
level.
mRNA stuff?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure
I
what
don't think
that.
it is because that's changing individuals. Like that's changing clusters of cells individually. This is more like genetically engineering a targeted source.
That's
That's
right.
just crazy, man.
It's more
That's
like
just insane.
CRISPR than it is the mRNA
Yeah.
stuff necessarily.
I mean, so from like our perspective, like we see hits and we don't see hits. Like we see hits with startups, but we don't really work in the tech startup space. We're not really a tech startup ourselves. We are and we aren't. Essentially, we work between enterprise and low level. But I mean, what does that mean for small businesses, right? What does that mean for a lot of tech stuff? Does that mean? So here's the big question: does that mean that tech startups were overinflated in
They were
general?
absolutely overvalued 150%. Like some
Like
people come out the gate with billion-dollar valuations, not a single user, not even a product.
I mean, look at the fraud. I mean, like look at the fraud cases, right? You had SFB, right, or Sam Bank Friedman, whatever, SBF. You had the you had oh my gosh, there was multiple of them. You had the guy that basically the Coinbase guy that essentially was
Mhm.
pre-trading on everything. You had all these people. It's like it's insane how the market was with tech startups. It was basically give me money. Well, can we look at your process and your source code or anything? No, you got to trust us. Give us money, right?
Trust me, bro.
Yeah, it was basically a trust me, bro
This is fine.
situation,
It's all
which
good. It's fun.
I mean, which is great. Which is great on one hand because, which is great on one hand because we're just like, oh my gosh, yeah, it's nice for us because like when we go, we have to have, like for us, we have to have all of our paperwork. Hell, to even bid on a stupid job, we have to have all of our finances and paperwork in order. We have to prove finances.
Mhm.
We have to prove insurance. We have to prove all these stupid things. And I sit there and I literally want to throw like my phone at the TV or whatever when I'm seeing SBF talk about how easy it was for him to get into these meetings essentially and be like, hey, listen, give me this money and I'll kick you back $18 million or whatever $1 million. Like this SBF, like, I don't, what was the amount of money he donated to political campaigns essentially to
He
help
was
them?
the number one Democratic Party donator that was a private citizen. It
Yeah,
was
it
it's
was
an
insane.
alarmingly large amount of money, especially knowing what how they were raising those funds and like how they were moving money around and stuff like that. Like it's really crazy. The people that lost money with them. The thing is, it's not like it was an investment scheme. They were a crypto exchange. They
Yeah.
just stole people's money, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of people's money. They just stole and reinvested it without even notifying the people they stole the money from. And their reinvestments were like lobbyists for a bunch of DNC hacks. It's ridiculous. The fact
Yes.
that he was even legally allowed to do that. Well, I mean, I guess because they operate in the Bahamas, the fact that he was even allowed to do that is insane to me. And then they funnel all that money to his girlfriend, and she was the CEO of some other company. Like the whole drama around this is
Bro, that stuff was just
so crazy.
insane. Which is funny, like to the point of hierarchies and essentially everything else. Even in our nerdy culture of what we do and everything is, I laugh because it's even in that even that situation where like those people I would say in an atypical non-tech school or whatever the case is that would get like beaten up for whatever purposes and whatnot, like even they built their own hierarchy and their own nepotism of all their friends and everything else that they trusted to give each other money.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
that's
like
just
he had a whole ring of people that were part
yeah,
of his trusted parties that everyone just kept sharing everyone else's money because that's what they were doing
yeah.
to hide the transactions and stuff. It was
I mean, I personally think it's a
crazy to
great thing
me.
that people are actually checking the books now. I mean, don't get me wrong. We would like to. I mean, we have our own AI products that we're trying to sell and work on and other stuff like that that we're trying to do. And we don't mean like, oh, hey, we repackaged OpenAI or Bard or anything else. We actually have generative AI models that were actually built on hardware and everything else. Which, by the way, for everybody out there who's trying to get into AI or build your own AI and everything else, be aware at some point you're going to need a farm of video cards or you're going to need a farm of those NVIDIA edge computing units to actually be able to process it and build it from scratch. Just
But if you don't
FYI.
want to be relying on somebody else's
Yeah.
cloud tech and the internet, you need edge computing
Yep.
devices.
Yep. You need the edge
And
computing
NVIDIA
devices,
has Tensor, like dedicated Tensor AI computing devices you can
which I
purchase.
have a prediction. Every one of those crypto, like have you seen on Facebook or on Instagram or whatever, people like reselling those old crypto mining farms essentially where there's like
Yeah,
15
the
or
ASIC
20 of
dudes.
the. I bet you those are going to skyrocket in the next 6 months because people are going to start realizing, "Oh shit, I need tensor cores."
Yeah, but those are ASIC units. They won't do anything for AI because they don't do computations that are going to be
Oh,
advantageous for
I
that. I think it's
I
more all the
I
altcoins that are coming out that still
yeah.
run on them, that can still be mined on them. People are going to be
I
buying
still
them.
think people are going to buy them. Like okay, if you're smart, you're gonna buy the new NVIDIA Edge computing unit. They came out with like this little Raspberry Pi size device essentially that has all those tensor cores that are specifically built for like the AI computing, whether you're using PyTorch or using TensorFlow to essentially build your AI models off of with all of that. But I mean, that's just my prediction over the next 6 months with all of that. Oh my gosh, I digress. Well, anyways, tech startups. I kind of like the fact that they're looking into it. It is a little harder to get money with other things like that, but I mean, maybe it brings some accountability now that people actually have to show what the hell they're doing, essentially.
I mean, I don't know if it's going to make much change because the government stepped in and they're covering all the defaults for SVB. So up to like $250 million now. So those people do is they took a bunch of risks. The government, or really the taxpayer, us, we're eating that, and they're going to get all their money back anyway. Almost all of it's going to be recovered outside of some institutions. I don't know that it's really going to do much. We've had issues like this in the past. This isn't the first time we've had problems like this in tech startups. It happened in '01. It happened in '08. It happened in 2015. It's happening now. It's because people get excited about some emerging piece of technology. Investors have severe FOMO. They don't want to miss out. They're just shoveling money into it now instead of investments in some sort of IoT crapware or shovelware. It's AI. The investments have quadrupled in AI in the last 9 months.
Yeah.
They dropped in VR. But once Meta came out and said, "Hey, we're losing $15 billion a year, but we're selling $3 billion a quarter in headsets and software," they're still losing. So they switched the focus, to AI. It was crypto for a little while. We had the crypto crash a couple of years ago. Investors aren't any smarter because they're worried that they're going to miss out on the next big gravy train for fast
FOMO. Yeah.
money. And until we change the culture of investing to put the accountability for people's losses back on them, the government can't keep bailing everything out because the government has no money. The
Yeah.
government makes $0. All of its money comes from its citizens. So we're just getting to the point now, especially with inflation, where we're underwriting all of these people's failure to pay attention to where they were spending their money. And there's only so much you can rely on the lower and middle class to do that, because the bulk majority of taxes is paid by the upper class, but the pain points for these things are really only felt by lower and middle class. Anyone making under like 75 grand a year feels inflation a lot more than anyone making above that. And a huge amount of the population lives significantly lower than that. So all of these things that we're paying for, all these bailouts, all this free money, it's just them loaning themselves money that they would be most likely a better steward of in the first place.
Yeah, the government's really good at printing money. But the
Mhm.
I
only thing that
mean,
does is
yeah,
it just makes things more expensive for the lower to middle class,
yeah.
right? Which is
Mhm.
why they're not able to afford all most of the necessities when that happens. So I agree 100%. I mean, it's and then the only ones who can survive or thrive are those that are making over 75,000 a
Yep.
year.
Mhm.
To your point.
Which is insane. So, oh my gosh, I don't remember if it was a concept that was being talked about, like being audits with all of the auditors and everything else. And here's kind of the base concept of it, saying, "Hey, we're not coming after you individually. Here's the reality of it." And I was laughing because I think it was all in podcast or whatever. But the reality is, every major rich billionaire, every major person, they're like, "What are you talking about? We get audited every freaking year."
Mhm.
They're like, "We already have dedicated auditors that hit us every year." that scour through everything. We have dedicated attorneys, dedicated CPA attorneys that go through all of that. The only people left to audit with all of those people are your middle class and small business owners.
And it's not even small business owners because we're already, for the most
I mean,
part, small business
we
owners
get
are hyper.
audited
Yeah,
every
we're
couple
audited really
years,
regular. We're
anyways.
hyper
Yeah,
vigilant about that stuff. It's all the people making probably less than 40 grand a year. This is where it's going to be hit. Why do you think they needed so many of them? 87,000 new employees for audit support. There isn't we don't have that many high income earners in the US to justify that amount of people. They're only going after lower income and middle class and lower middle class at that. The amount of people that make over like 55 or 60 grand a year, there's like a TurboTax study about this a couple years ago. They get audited is like sub 3%.
yeah,
The amount of people that get audited though below that is like 30 or 40% within 5 to 6 years. They're going to get audited. And those audits always cost them money. The government isn't going to audit you unless it thinks you owe them money.
yeah. So I
There's
mean
no
that.
reason to go after someone they don't think owes them money. So they're going after waiters, waitresses, people on the tip economy and stuff like that. That's who they're going after
Yeah,
because they know you're misreporting it. And all these people keep going up on their socials, flashing the money they make when they do that stuff. It's like, you think the government doesn't pay attention to that? They absolutely do. It's like, no, I make like $200 extra a week. Well, you should be paying $63 of that in taxes, and you're not even reporting it. They
yeah.
do know it. They pay attention to that stuff, and I've seen them use that kind of thing in court cases where they go back and go, "You owe us all this extra money in taxes." Like, I didn't make that. I didn't. I'm a poor car hopper, whatever the hell it is, or a valet person. Like, yeah, well, we saw on your Facebook 2 years ago that you posted this stack of freaking cash after a healthy night.
Oh my
And for
gosh,
that month, you only reported this.
that's
It's
like
like,
that guy's remember that
uh,
TikTok that blew up where all he does is go through adult entertainers and he looks for people holding up cash and reports all of them to the IRS and
mhm.
he gets a percentage of it.
Oh yeah,
Oh
the
wow.
dude doing the OnlyFans stuff. He was like, yeah, that shit was so funny. And they
When
got really
when
mad about it.
when did they require over $600 that was transferred via Zelle or Venmo or those
2022.
platforms that was going to
Yeah,
be
that
2022.
automatic?
they started proposing it in 2020. Now they're doing
And
it
then,
this year.
yeah,
It's
it's
in it's signed in, so unless it gets repealed next year, it's gonna be a thing, which
oh
is
yeah.
stupid. Like, I pay my rent via Zelle. Like, I'm not gonna fill out a justification form every time I pay my rent. But that's what they want you to do. They want you to fill out the same information as if you'd taken 10 grand in cash out.
I
Which now
mean,
they've lowered that as well. Now most banks have a policy over $3,000, over $5,000. You have to fill out a justification form for your own money.
yep. I mean, I think we should go the Ron Swanson route. Bury our gold or bury our crypto wallets.
Yeah.
But
And that's
anyway,
one of the
yeah,
reasons they're trying to regulate crypto so hard is
yeah.
crypto
That's
gives
right.
I know.
financial autonomy back to
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, Renee, I know you only have a few minutes left before you got to hop off here. But I wanted to first I wanted to say that thank God. Okay, so I was actually just looking at SBF, right? And the big everyone. So there's a big fact check, right? That I had to go look on Reuters that that SBF was going to be released of 10 of the 13 charges or whatever. No, for everyone, quick fact check. He filed to have 10 of them dismissed, but the judge said, "Hell no." I'm not doing any of that. All 13 charges are still sticking. There's no basis for any reason why you shouldn't be doing that. Just an FYI on that. So,
The
but
fact that he was only charged with 13 counts is the really
is
alarming
insane.
part,
Oh, yeah,
because he was
absolutely
originally
insane.
charged with like 500.
Yeah. I mean, that's just absolutely insane. But essentially, kind of with that being said, before Renee, you go out, we like to end on a little happier note here with everything. Are you a superhero fan movie at all? Like of superhero movies?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
My heart bled a little bit when Henry Cavill was dumped. I mean, to me, he was the epitome of Superman. Did a phenomenal job of it. They just James Gunn just released the new Superman, the new Lois, and everything else. Which I'm laughing. I'm like, it looks like Henry Cavill. Just keep Henry
It
Cavill.
really does. It looks like a young Henry Cavill.
Which
And
I'm,
Rachel looks so much like the classic Lois from
she
the
does.
50s comics.
She does. Like, it's just insane. So, with that being said, I mean, is it just easier to start over, or is it cheaper to start over?
Cheaper.
Like, is it cheaper to get a lesser known actor to play that role instead of Henry Cavill?
Oh,
Yeah,
for
because
sure.
a lesser known actor doesn't get access
Yeah.
to royalties. Henry Cavill
Exactly.
gets access to royalties that are stacked. Like,
I
if
mean,
the movies
yeah.
do bad, he
Oh,
makes
yeah.
money.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. So, with that being said, though, does that mean, like, we know the Robert Pattinson Batman was in a completely different realm, but does he get moved over at this point? Is he going to be a part of it because he's a part of that younger generation of just starting out as Batman? Like,
I think they're rebooting the entire DCEU, aren't they?
well, they're
Like the
calling it the
Aquaman
DCU now. It's
movie-
not even DCEU; it's DCU now.
Oh,
Because
I feel like
you know
the
Marvel,
Aquaman movie is like the last of the DCEU movies that get to come out.
the Hawkman. I would have loved if they done Hawk Girl instead. I really love the
I
animated.
don't know enough about
series.
either of those people.
Oh.
All I know from Hot Girl is from Legacies of Tomorrow or whatever. No,
Oh yeah, the
on,
Batman the animated,
on
or
CW.
not Batman, sorry, Justice League the animated series.
Speaking of
That
hot girl,
one too,
hawk
yeah.
girl, is there a Flash girl that exists?
There's a lot of Flashes. You
yeah.
have Kid Flash, Reverse Flash. You have the Speedster. You have the I mean, there's like 5 or 6 different Flashes that they have. Essentially, that all use the Speed Force.
Yeah, because the minute they went with like the concept of the multiverse, they could just gender bend and race swap whatever they wanted to.
I mean, different characters. Like, I will admit, like, my favorite. I mean, it's not really gender, but my favorite Green Lantern will always be Jon Stewart. Like, I know a lot of people are Hal Jordan fans, but Jon Stewart's just my favorite.
You know, speaking of Green Lantern, that movie wasn't terrible, and I'll die on that hill. Man, it was great with the source material. It was hokey. It was a great popcorn movie, even though that dude looked like a ball sack. It's fine. No different than Thanos' chin.
Like, you know what's sad is they're gonna have to wait. When did that come out?
God, 15 years ago?
I feel like they're gonna have to wait till 20 years to re-release Green Lantern to actually be something. You know,
2011. So it
2011.
was 12 years ago.
Okay, 12 years ago. Maybe in another 3 or 4 years we'll get actually a good Green Lantern. But the Jon Stewart Green Lantern, hands down my favorite.
Yeah.
Except for Kilowatt.
Yeah, I thought I saw. Going back to the Flash girl, I thought I saw that Megan Fox was going to be the next
Oh my
Flash
God.
woman or Flash.
Stop.
Fine.
Stop.
She gonna hook him with her weird fingers?
No, Machine Gun Kelly's gonna be. Oh my God, Machine Gun Kelly's gonna be. Is gonna be.
Oh,
is
they're
gonna be
broke up.
Two-Face.
She's dating someone else now.
Oh, is she?
Yeah, they broke up a while ago. You're right, actually. She is listed. Wow. Yeah, she's like they have artwork up for her as the Flash and everything. I don't
Oh
know
my
that she was
gosh.
picked with Flash
That's what I saw.
necessarily.
No, thank you.
I mean, the
she-
last superhero thing I saw her in that wasn't Transformers was that Jonah Hex movie. Do you remember that movie? Like it's forever
That's
ago.
another great comic that was destroyed for me. Like Jonah.
The
Okay,
movie wasn't great. It wasn't bad. Wasn't great.
I mean, like, I get it. When you write movies, you're gonna change them around. Like I had a big argument about the Flash. Like, I just like, it was. I'm okay changing everything around, but be consistent with yourself. Freaking Barry Allen can't have a have a heartfelt moment with his mom moving one soup can and be like, I can never change the timeline ever again, and then decide to move all the soup cans to the top shelf so his stupid dad looks up. That's just inconsistent. Renee, I know you got to go. You can go ahead and drop off. We're gonna finish up here, but that's just okay. That's grinds my gears moment. You got to be consistent with yourself.
Yep. Yep. Hey, Ben, thanks for the invite, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Look forward to doing this again.
Yeah, absolutely. We look forward to it too. Bring some more people, whatever the case is. Thank you for coming along, everybody. Add Renee on your LinkedIn profiles or anything else. Anything you want to plug or add, feel free, man.
All right, guys. Brooks, good seeing you. Talk to you guys
Yeah,
later, all right?
definitely.
All right, cool.
Later,
Take care.
Thanks, man. Anyways, oh my gosh, that ground my gears so bad. The inconsistency of the movie itself. I can't move one soup can because it destroys the forward and back timeline. But I'm gonna
I
move
haven't
all.
watched it yet. After you talking to you about it this weekend, I was like,
Wait
I
for
don't know that I
Plex.
can
Wait
be
for
ours.
Plex. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like it was so angering to watch. Like there were great heartfelt moments. There were great concepts in the movie. I understood they weren't going to copy Flashpoint Paradox after the atrocity of Batman versus Superman copied Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns.
Martha. Yeah.
Yeah, like Martha, what do you mean, Mom? Like I love College Humor's take on that. Mommy, why did you say that? It's my mom, friggin'.
Yeah.
But
It's basically what it was. I mean,
yeah, but I mean like Frank Miller's Return of the Dark Knight was phenomenal. Like they could have done that. They could have done anything close to that. But all they did was, hey, that's a cool idea that Batman and Superman are fighting. Why don't we do that?
Yeah.
Like I get that it's hard about the Dark Knight Returns is it's in the future. Batman is old. Like the Joker is literally in a hospital. He has no fight or will because Batman's basically gone. And there's anarchy. Or Superman becomes a dog of the state, which I'm like, that kind of is his character. That kind of isn't character. So you couldn't take some of that in, especially if you're gonna have a younger Superman or younger Batman, essentially, and a younger Superman. But Superman at that point was still kind of new within the series. But dang, bring anything else in. So I didn't expect anything from the Flash movie, which is supposed to be based off of the Flashpoint Paradox, which spoiler teasers, obviously there's lots of stuff that happens in it, but like in the Flashpoint Paradox, go watch it. It's on I think HBO or Max now. Just Max by itself, but the idea is he goes back in time. He's fighting. He ends up fighting. I won't give away who he's fighting in there. Essentially, the main antagonist in the movie. But you get cool stuff like Wonder Woman and Arthur Curry, essentially Aquaman, are waging an all-out war, and in the wake of everything, are all humans dying and everything around it with everything else, and just kind of all these crazy nuances to the story. Batman or Superman, of course, kind of like in the Flash movies, trapped in his little cell and they got to get him out. But in there, obviously, it's Supergirl, which I was even cool with. All right, cool, Supergirl. It's a different timeline, whatever the case is. I actually liked her as Supergirl. It wasn't the trope of a not smart blonde girl who has a fist and punches first. They kind of made her a little bit edgy, like a almost like a Batman Supergirl, if that makes sense. Which I was like, cool. I actually kind of like that version of Supergirl, where she just she's more emotionally punchy than physically punchy, if that makes sense. But whatever the case is, I digress. I'm just kind of going on there with everything else. Yeah.
I want to roll back to the whole companies getting investment thing real quick.
Oh yeah.
So there's a game that just launched. That launched in June of last year called The Cycle Frontier. And it was at its peak a couple 100,000 concurrent players. It's averaged down to like 3 or so thousand. Yesterday they announced that they were closing their doors. They have a full complement of staff. It had a big push. They got bought in by Tencent.
Oh wow.
So like they have a massive investment of cash, and they're like, we can't do this. It's not profitable. They had in-game transactions. They had a seat like a battle pass, everything else. It's a looter shooter, kind of like Tarkov in space. They were unable to make it work after a year. But you look, and they're a big team. with backed by AAA studio money. You look at BattleBit, which came out, which is built on the Roblox engine.
Hmm.
Three dudes spent a year making BattleBit, and it's like one of the highest grossing games. It's like number one on the Steam store, one of the highest grossing games. These are two startups that started their release journey around the same time. BattleBit stayed in early access
Lean.
for an extra year doing playtesting, and it's just crazy that three dudes have made like one of the best games to come out this entire year, and it's not graphically beautiful. It doesn't have an intense story. They just focused on what they did really, 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 really well. And they only brought in investors that would help them push their vision. You look at startups that fail, they take money from people that don't always help them with their vision. And that's one of the things that happened to Cycle is Tencent is known for shelving companies that they are in games and products
Yeah.
that they don't think will be profitable in a micro window of time, and as a result, they're being shut down. And they also had the Saint Jaeger, the same company, had two of their other titles canceled by Tencent before they even got past the concept stage. It had like GDC release information come out a couple of years ago. It's just really crazy to me what is going on in that space where these tiny teams are more nimble. They're able,
Well,
when
it's
we
it's
see
it's
that,
it's
we're
push.
faster than bigger teams.
Well, I mean, it's pushing people to be efficient, to be
Mm-hmm.
nimble, to be agile. And I don't mean like agile, like agile, the project management for like, but you actually have to be nimble and agile. I mean, that's how our team has always been built. The big
Mm-hmm.
argument is I will always pay you well. I'll always give you the best damn insurance. I'm not going to buy you lunch every day. I'm not going to do a lot of things kind of like that, like those, like Google or whatever the case is. But one, we work regular hours. I mean, there are
Mm-hmm.
times where we work hard hours, don't get me wrong, but we work good hours where we don't have to kill ourselves and die ourselves. But two, we get through red tape very, very, very fast, and we get through projects
Mm-hmm.
very, very fast. One of our clients is $1 billion client. The company, the parent company came down because we work with one of the child companies as well as along with the parent company. They just restaffed their whole team up on the parent side. They came down, saw our team size so we have a team dedicated to that specific client of like I think
Mm-hmm.
4 people dedicated to that client specifically. They came down and they're like, well, where's your they're like, okay, well, can we see your code? Oh my gosh, this is phenomenal. We built an entire management suite that ties in basically all their ERP together essentially on the back end. They're like, this is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you do that? They're like, okay, well, like can we see the documentation? Great. Yeah, here's the documentation. Can we see your workflow process? Great. Like, oh my god, like, can we talk to your can we talk to your technical writers that wrote the documentation? Like, what are you talking about? We wrote it all. They're like, are you
Yeah.
kidding me? They're like, yeah, we wrote the notes, we wrote the comments, we wrote the how tos, the help sections, the all of it, all of the above. And they're like, oh man, you guys need to hire more people. I mean, if you want to pay us to hire more people, great, but we do this because we have to be kind of versatile, which is like
Mm-hmm.
like when we hire people, I don't necessarily look for years or anything else. I look for, one, do you have the ability to learn?
Mm-hmm.
Two, are you versatile? Three, can you get along in our chat?
Yeah, and not just the ability to learn. Do you have the desire to
To
learn?
learn.
Like you
Yeah, are
need
you
to be able to
curious?
learn new skills.
Yeah, I like to
That's
say is it
like
the
vitally important.
yeah, the curious gene. Are you the type of person that's going to go, "Oh, this is interesting." That's why, don't get me wrong, that's why we have a phenomenal DevOps manager and other stuff like that to kind of smack everyone back onto track, because we do tend to go down rabbit holes sometimes. I mean, I know I do and I know you do sometimes too, even
Mm-hmm.
as, partners with everything that we do. But yeah, no, I mean, it's forcing people to have to be lean, like all of these, like, it's crazy just even in the gaming space, which is, gaming is like the number one revenue for entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
It beats out everybody. The close second is anime,
Mm-hmm.
which is just batshit insane.
Yeah, seeing what kind of money comes in and out of these gaming brands, and realizing that in some regards they dwarf even like Hollywood. A lot of it, like Activision, is probably worth more than most of the current release stables of like whatever movies are coming out this year from the big three production companies, because they're making just from one game, they're making $1.5 billion a year, and these games are paying for themselves. They spend $1 billion, but they're paying for themselves in 6 months. So, and then it's pure profit of that, and if the runway for them, for as far as how long they run, is like 3 to 5 years, if not longer. People still play like Black Ops 3. It's still got a player base. It still gets sold. They're still making money on stuff like that.
Well,
It's
what do people like
it's pretty
Epic do
nutty.
then?
Epic makes their money by
Microtransactions,
licensing.
obviously, but yeah.
Well, as far as Fortnite goes, yeah, but they make their money by producing an engine that they license out for a
Well,
percentage
okay.
of
Well,
revenue in
yeah.
perpetuity.
The Unreal. Okay, let's use a better example. What about like Rockstar Games? Yeah, is all their money basically GTA, or are they?
No, not at all. I mean, a lot of it is because it's got a huge install base, but Rockstar has a half a dozen or so titles that are still actively played and sold. I mean, Red
Mhm.
Dead Redemption 2 and Red Dead Redemption are both still sold. They both still have large active player bases. Um, they're probably still making 10 or $20 million a quarter just from those two titles alone. But GTA as a whole, there's 15 games in GTA.
Did you hear they're
Almost
coming out
all of
with
them are still
GTA
for
6
sale.
finally?
Yeah, I mean they had to. Once the source code for the game got leaked last year,
Yeah.
so we knew it was coming out. They've had to change a lot as a result of the source code that got leaked. That's probably going to be a $10 billion franchise for Rockstar, realistically, over the course of its
Yeah.
lifetime. I don't know how much GTA 5 has made, but I'm willing to bet it's probably pretty close to $7 or $8 billion.
I mean, for a product to last that long in the gaming industry, where you're just doing updates, I mean
Mm-hmm.
that was a good run for them. That was a very very good run for them, albeit considering. Because I mean, you look at like God of War, or you look at Gears of War, or you look at Halo and all this other stuff. Like the goal, if you're having to come out with a new game every 2 years, that's rough. Where
Mm-hmm.
you have to rebuild everything, do everything else. But I mean, GTA, they just literally pushing out stuff. I mean, Destiny 2 has been riding
Mm-hmm.
that same boat. Instead of coming out with a new Destiny with everything, they just come out with new storylines.
Yeah, they just sell DLC. Another long-standing game is Warframe that's been around for a decade or so.
Yeah,
Instead of making a sequel, they just continue to add content to it, and they
yeah.
sell the content for 15 or $20. There's in-game purchases and stuff like that as well. Um, the GTA 5, by the way, as of last year, made $8 billion for Rockstar, and it cost them 65 million to make.
Wow. I
So
mean, that's
they're
just insane.
making they are making oh, jeez,
I mean,
not
yeah.
$3 million a quarter right now
Oh
on
my
GTA
gosh.
5 as of this year.
I mean,
So they'll add another couple of $1 billion to it, $3 billion to it.
that's just crazy. Well, we're gonna wrap up here with our normal segment of what can you do to help your IT career and other stuff like that. I was talking with what do you call it, a mutual streaming buddy of ours. His name's Grandiose. Go follow him on Twitch. Phenomenal dude. And we were actually talking last night about he's wanting to go and get his security degree, basically, or security certifications and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, well, you have a couple different paths. What do you want to do, Grandiose? And he goes, well, he's like, I want to get in security. I kind of want to be the guys that go in and kind of hammer away at it. And I said, well, that's a little bit generic. I said, so let's break it down to easy ones. We have our red teams, we have our blue teams. Technically, there's like purple teams and blah blah blah, but we're gonna stick with like red teams and blue teams. We're gonna actually do 3 categories: red teams, blue teams, and management. So effectively, red teams, blue teams are the biggest essentially employing fields. Not that there's not other teams and everything else in a big circle. So security people, don't get mad at me. Leave me alone. um, but essentially, your management teams, essentially, we call those lifetime CISOs or lifetime CTOs. Their whole job is to push as much liability and blame on everybody else as possible. That's that's
Mm-hmm.
that's their job. Their job is to go, ooh, compliance, and they're very good at compliance. They're very good at what we do. Like me, I literally have to memorize the CMMC. I have to memorize the PCI DSS documents with the 3.2.1 to 4.0. I have to memorize stupid PCI documents, CCPA documents. I mean, that's essentially what I do now. I'm a little bit less out of engineering and a lot into architecture. But I mean, the whole job that we end up doing in that realm is basically pushing liability off. We just got into an argument with one of our clients, their new CISO, I think it is, or not their new CISO. Yeah, maybe it's their new CISO. And they basically said, we don't want to absorb any of your security environment. You go do it yourself. I'm like, okay, with enough time and money, we'll do anything. I was like, but liability costs money. Pay us.
Yeah.
Right? But I mean, that's their job. So if you want to get into that realm, it's a pretty good realm. Your big job is looking at risk. You're looking at assessment. You're looking at liability, probable liability. You got to learn a little bit of law. You got to learn a bit of other stuff. So that's one route you can take. And that is a lifetime being a hard ass. Like if you've ever met a CISO, they've probably been a hard ass, and they're a hard ass for a reason. Their whole job is to basically keep the company from having to take on any risk and liability. Essentially, that's going on. Even though there are risk and compliance officers and anything else, but you're basically going to argue with them saying, why should we take this on? Essentially, they're the people that you argue with that make the policies that say, essentially, well, why do you need to install this? Why do you need to do that? Those are
Why do you need to be able to use a jump
yeah.
drive?
Or
They're
what?
at the end of the day, too, they're the ones that get fired when malware goes rampant.
Exactly. Which, side note, how angering is it to you to hear that? One, Dallas has been the city of Dallas was under attack with ransomware, right? So they've been trying to clean it up for 2 months now. They just paid $4 million for like monitoring software for all of their crypto, and I'm like, $4 million? What? I was like, I wish I had that budget. I was like, who's making money off of this deal, and how can I get in on that? So that's just,
Well, and now they don't even let you do 911 calls, non-emergency calls. Sorry, are now done through a web app.
Yeah. But
So like you don't even call 911 or 311 anymore. You fill out a form from your smartphone.
But I'm sitting here going, what the hell? Where can I spend that? I mean, because it's segmentation. It's having a proper full UTM. So you have HIPS, you have antivirus, you have lockdown. You need to segment backups. You need to have backups. You need to make sure they're on separate data stores. There's a reason we tell people, if you're using Hypervisor, don't put your stupid data stores onto an SMB share. I'm going to smack you. Separate it out. Keep your management, keep like even ESX. ESX isn't prone to not getting hit by crypto war, but damn, keep your ESX and those storages off net. Keep your management access off net. Do not let people be able to get to the internet for those management subnets and VLANs. Anyways, I digress. So you have your management LAN, and then your blue teams basically are your everyday people, your everyday security people. They start off with like security analysts, security reviewers. Those are your SOC teams and stuff like that. SOC is Security Operations Center. Those are the people that kind of overlook it. Those are the people that kind of implement. Then you have red teams, which is what Grandiose was kind of looking at. Your red teams are your guys that drink Red Bull and basically shake. Those are the guys that get called in. Like we've worked with
Your incident response.
Yeah, your incident response. Those are the guys that do postmortem, incident response, everything else. Like we've done a lot of red team work before. We've done blue team work, and I've done virtualized CISO, whatever type of role work too. But like we've worked with companies like Baker and McKinsey. They're huge in that field. Essentially, when you get hit hard, you get basically hired by them, and they bring in companies like CRA and other stuff like that to basically come in and do red team work where you're working hand in hand with them. Which, by the way, I have a video somewhere a long time ago where I actually did on like what to do if you've ever gone through a breach and what to expect from it. Essentially with that, but those are kind of the avenues we talked about in those three fields, and not saying that there's not a lot, but those are kind of the three areas that you can focus on, like in your career, and if you want to essentially move somewhere in the security realm, because I know a lot of people they're pushing really hard, computer engineering or software engineering and security. So just keep in mind, those are your three areas. You can be kind of a lifetimer. Basically push the blame anywhere else you can and mitigate as best you can. You can be the team that essentially looks at logs all day long and installs patch updates and tells people to do stuff. Like we actually have a former employee that works with us. We're on phenomenal terms. He essentially kind of moved on to a different stage to less of what we do since we do more consulting. And he actually went full time into compliance review. That's all he does. His whole job is to find holes in security and report them.
Yeah.
Right. So
Did
that's
you
a whole
tell
field.
Grandiose to go with like the two basic CompTIA certs to start, or did you tell
Yeah.
what'd you tell him to start with?
Oh, I told him to
Those are
start.
like the easiest ones to start,
Yeah, I
and
told him to start with CompTIA. There's some programs that he's going through. One of them I was very surprised, which don't get me wrong, you're a BAMF if you can get it. But one of them, he said it was like a boot camp program that said they'd get him his OSCP, and I'm like, bro, you need like two
that
to
is a
five.
you
You need like
need a baseline.
years. Yeah, you need some years to
Yeah.
kind of understand that. Which that's the offensive security certified
Hmm.
professional. You got to at least have 5 years in the industry. You got to know Linux. Like your whole test is a 24-hour hack in where you have to be able to hack through everything to get in. You have to
Hmm.
firewalk. You have to reverse engineer hashes. You have to do all this crazy
Well,
stuff.
it's a grand an attempt to test. It's like
Yes.
$1,000 a test,
Yeah.
and there's like the margin for error is really really low.
Yeah.
You need to have solid fundamentals. So like most people I know that have it they're like CISSPs or something
Yeah.
like that. They're already in the industry
Yeah.
and they're adding this to their stack.
Yep.
It's hard to get.
Yeah. So
Like
here's
there's
my
no
yeah.
minimums, but it's hard to
No,
get.
it's hard to get, and this is what I tend to tell people: CompTIA Security Plus,
Hmm.
CEH. There, in whether or not you
Hmm.
think CEH is good or not, it's a good resume builder. Um,
Yeah.
and CISSP, it's a really weird certification because it's in the middle of everything. You can
Yeah.
get it technically off of the bat, but it's the CISSP is good. There's a lot of good information, but it's a resume builder at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it's not that you have one and you can get in somewhere. It's there. One is the
Needs
left side and
several.
right side. Yeah, you need
Yeah.
kind of several to get in there, and then
I normally tell people to get their Security Plus and the CASP, which is
yeah,
like Security Plus on steroids from
yeah,
CompTIA, and then go into something else because you can
yeah,
learn both of those for like under a grand. You can get
yeah,
certified, and you can learn them in probably 3 months.
yeah, and you can
And
do
from there, you
yeah.
can do whatever you want, your
Yeah, and you can
GCIH
do
or whatever
your
you want.
CEH through Udemy. It's not hard.
Hmm.
It's an easy one to get. It's a beginner type of certification. If you go after your OSCP and you pass it, I mean, high five to you. You could probably get a job most anywhere you want at that
Yeah,
point.
I don't know anyone with that's making less than like 175,
Yeah, I
185
mean, you got
because
to
they
be
know
phenomenal.
you have to be very good because it's not just that's a practical type of
Yes.
certification.
Yeah.
You had to do something to earn it, not take a test. You had to do something, break into a system
Yeah.
and compile a list of vulnerabilities and stuff. So anyone that gets that cert has done something.
Yeah.
And you have to attempt dozens of like before you get to the point where you're taking that test, you should have broken into dozens of other
Yeah.
like lab systems to just to get the practice down. So
Yeah.
you're going to be quite good at what you do.
So,
I'm
so the
pretty sure it's
yeah.
like 175 to 250.
Yeah, and here's the best advice I'm going to get if you want to actually get into pen testing specifically, or security analysts and other stuff like that to find vulnerabilities and holes and other things like that. Be a sysadmin. That's the best advice I've ever heard. So I was
Mhm.
at DEF CON, right? DEF CON is like the second largest. It's one of the largest, basically security and hacking conventions in the world, right? In the
Mhm.
United States specifically as well. It's over in Vegas. It's usually in August. If you go, please, if you go, turn off your Bluetooth. Know what you're doing. Keep watch of what you're doing. Don't connect to random Wi-Fi. It's just basic stuff like that.
Don't
But
connect to any Wi-Fi.
yeah,
I don't
don't.
even know that I would trust my cellular reception because
No, no,
people
you
hunt
can't.
about that all
If
the
you, by the
time.
way, if you're over at DEF CON and what they call them EMI intercepting devices, if you see your signal all of a sudden drop from like 5G or 4G down to 3G or to 4, like if you see all automatically flip, you've been intercepted. By the way,
Hmm.
so like just an FYI. But anyways, I digress. With all that being said, the best advice I heard, and this was a company where they strictly do nothing but pen testing, red team type stuff and blue team type stuff, was was we look for anybody with a pass in system administration or
Hmm.
system administration, because you know the ins and out of how to get through stuff. Because let's face it, if you are an IT tech at all, the first thing you're learning is all the bypasses. You're learning all
Yeah.
of those stupid little things, and everyone's got to admit it. It's like peeing in the shower. Everyone finds a shortcut to something that they use that they're not supposed to do it that way. And that's essentially what you learn as a sysadmin. Like, it's kind of like, oh my God, this is easy. Let me just go into Active Directory and click this, this, and this, and this. Well, where's your change request? Where's your ticket? Where's
Yeah.
your things? And especially when you see it, you see this a lot in the MSPs where people just kind of bully their way through it. You don't see it a lot when you get higher up into enterprises, because there has to be a chain of custody of whose throat they can
Yeah.
choke, essentially. But essentially, with all of that though being said, is, if you want to kind of start, get a job as a system admin as you're doing it, or start learning how to like manage your own, like make your own virtual box, make your own stuff, go to Linode, get a free one there, learn how to manage a server, learn how Active Directory works, learn how all these stupid things happen, learn how then you can start learning how to intercept tokens, then you can start learning how to make fake web pages that people can log in, you can steal their information, whatever the case. By the way, Pastor Ryan, I don't know if you've ever seen him on TikTok. He cracks me up. They call him a youth pastor Ryan. I don't know if he talks about how he actually wasn't a youth pastor or whatever the case is, but his name is Ryan Kelly or whatever the case is. He actually has a master's in Homeland Security. So he literally is like, he now does TikToks essentially on, this is how I reverse engineered someone that was trying to steal an old lady's credit card. So I sent them an email saying, hey, click here to get access to it, which sent them to a fake Google page, theoretically. And essentially, he's like, and had them log or whatever the case is. So he's pretty cool if you ever want to see funny content, essentially, about like security and other stuff like that. But with all that being said, learn how to be a sysadmin, learn how to lock yourself out, learn how to do all these things. And then it's usually a good route into security.
Yeah, and also learn that the largest failure of every single security model is the
It's a
human
person.
operator.
Yep.
Social engineering causes like all the big iCloud hacks from several years ago were literally just a
Yep.
couple of dudes social engineering their way past customer service reps.
Funny story. Um, I'm not gonna say who because I don't want to get sued, but a major online domain company that I used to use. Well, I mean, I still use for other stuff, and luckily they've locked down their securities a bunch. I used to host a website for my mother-in-law for her business or whatever, and she was trying to update or change something around. Bro, she called in to GoDaddy, yelled at them till they reset my password and sent it to her.
Hmm.
And I was like, what the hell? I called GoDaddy. I'm like, what did you do? Oh, we reset your PIN code and everything else. She said she was the owner. I'm like, no, I'm the owner of the account. And they're like, well, she said she's the owner of the domain. I said, look at the owner of the account. And like, I mean, they got in huge trouble for that, and they apologized and a bunch of other stuff and whatnot and everything else. But damn, my mother-in-law accidentally social engineered a way into my
Hmm.
domain registrar.
Yeah, I mean it wasn't an accident. She berated them
I mean,
until
she
they gave it to
berated
her,
she
but
berated them,
she
but
didn't
that's
realize what
that's
she was
social
doing.
engineering, though.
Yeah,
Um,
100%, man.
I mean, can
100%.
you like that was just I sat there, so like I added and it's funny because I made them change everything. Like obviously I moved her domain out of mine. I'm like, you need to
Yeah.
have your own domain, but that's when all of a sudden they started updating securities and other stuff like that. And by the way, I had multi-factor. I had all that shit on there. They reset it
Yeah,
all.
they can just bypass it too.
Yeah.
Like it's
So now I require
all
them
that
to
stuff's
like show
optional.
ID or email verification to my email, like to verify
Hmm.
some anytime someone does anything. So that was just funny. I got kind of hit with that. Any case, I mean that's my advice. Do you have any other advice about like just like getting into careers for tech?
Learn
Learn, be
everything you
curious.
can. Yeah, be curious.
Be curious.
A desire to learn new things will get you further in this than any person you know, any certificate you can possibly get. Understand your knowledge tools and your search tools and use them to their maximum ability. Critical thinking, practice it.
Yeah.
Question why,
Yeah.
not just how, and you'll
Yeah.
do fine.
Which, by the way, everybody, we appreciate you coming over here. If you want to learn more, check the link in the bio in the description. We're working on putting together an IT career coaching class. It's going to be maximum of like 15 people. We're trying to make it reasonably priced, so we're looking at like probably about like 65 bucks or something like that. It gives you an hour and a half with 15 people. We'll go over the different courses. Essentially, we may end up having like one every couple of days, like one's focused on security, one's focused on this, so you can figure it out. We're still trying to work on those details, but it'll give you the opportunity, if you have specific questions you want to ask us about paths, employers, type of work, tools, everything else, stupid questions where it's like, do you use Parrot or do you use Kali? Well, we use Kali, but Parrot isn't bad. It's just kind of more of a GUI interface with Parrot. You can't berate people for using different tools. It just depends on the level of depth you want to go. But book over there if you want to do that. Follow us. Get on our Discord. We're also working on a fun platform on our Discord. We're going to be launching a subscription service on there. If you want to join up, you guys can join up, and we have special tier 3 tech conversation chats that we're going to have that we have all of our guys that worked in DoD. They worked in Department of Ed. We've worked in enterprise financial, all that other stuff. We have our guys active in that chat. If you guys want to jump in and start talking with us and stuff like that, or if you have questions and you want to kind of join, it's also, we have like gaming and other stuff like that too. But if you want to join with that subscription, you're more than welcome. But worst case scenario, join our Discord, Blacksmith IT or Blacksmith Integrations. We'll link that in the bio below too. And you can ask us general questions and other stuff like that. And trust me, we're not stiflers. If you ask a question in general, we're probably going to try to answer it anyways, but it'll help support us and what we do, and essentially help our moderators kind of keep up with that and kind of give life to our tech people. Because I got to be honest with you, we're tech, we get bored, we have ADD. We'll switch back and forth from our work to answering questions over there. Any case, but we appreciate you guys. Thank you for listening to, I think this is episode 4 of our BS IT podcast, and enjoy.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.